Hello and welcome back to the Movie Memo Recaps. Today we are going to recap a 2014 movie titled Nightcrawler. Please be advised that there will be spoilers ahead. In the opening scene, we are introduced to Lou breaking into a train yard in Los Angeles at night and beginning to cut a chain-link fence. Suddenly, he notices a light approaching and immediately hides his equipment before being discovered by a security personnel who requests an ID. Lou approaches him, appearing to cooperate, only to strike, knock him unconscious, and steal his watch. Lou then travels to a scrapyard and sells the fence to the foreman after a lengthy negotiation. Then he wonders whether the foreman is hiring and uses a lot of corporate jargon to pitch himself. The foreman quickly replies no. Later, while driving, Lou notices a few police cars passing by and pulls over to investigate what's going on. It turns out there was an accident, and a car is on fire with people inside. When Joe and his employee arrive to record everything, Lou observes with great interest and attention. When they're finished, Lou questions Joe about his profession, and he reveals that he's a stringer, which means he rushes to locations where a crime or tragedy has occurred and documents everything. He then sells the footage to the highest-paying newscast. A stringer simply requires a camera and a police scanner. Louis finds the position appealing and asks if he's hiring, but Joe declines. The next day, Lou witnesses the disaster on TV and is even more motivated to get into this profession. He goes to the beach and waits for a person to get distracted so he can steal his bike, then goes to pawn it. The shop owner refuses to discuss the price, so Louis begs for store credit and receives a camcorder and a police scanner in return. That night, he uses the scanner to begin listening to all of the reports in the region, only to learn he doesn't understand the codes and needs to locate a decent way to get there soon. He first arrives for a simple arrest, and the cops swiftly send him away. Next, he tries to record a woman who was pulled over for drunk driving, but the officers promptly kick him out. Eventually, he arrives at the site of a tragic carjacking and gets near enough to the victim to capture some horrific footage. This enrages a cop, who promptly kicks Louis and another stringer out, cursing Louis because he is now unable to complete filming. Louis ignores his rage and follows him to hear his phone call so he can learn how to haggle with newscasters and how much to charge. Louis then goes to Station 6 and gives the film to Nina, the news director, who is immediately astonished by how close he came. She summons the producer Frank, but he flips out, stating they can't air such a graphic show. Nina says they'll just add a warning and remind him she's the boss, so she agrees to purchase the tape. Louis tries negotiating but doesn't get as much money as he expected, but Nina tells him that he's promising and only needs a better camera because his image quality isn't great right now. Since she is eager to buy more from him in the future, Louis inquires as to what is best for ratings, and Nina replies that their viewers are interested in gruesome accidents and violent crimes in wealthy white neighborhoods. The next morning, Louis sees his clip on TV and feels like he's accomplished something. He transfers the news tape to his computer and looks up a list of police codes online to learn their meanings. Later, he meets with a young man named Rick for an interview. Once again, he employs a lot of corporate jargon to ask questions and have Rick talk about himself, but in the end, he hires him because he has a phone, knows the area well, and understands how to use GPS. Louis adds that this is an unpaid internship, prompting Rick to object that he should be paid at least something because he is virtually destitute. Following a lengthy debate, Louis agrees to pay him $30 every night. In the evening, Louis and Rick sit in the car listening to the police scanner for an intriguing occurrence, and Louis takes use of the opportunity to teach Rick the police codes. After many hours of silence, they hear about a fire and rush there. Rick is supposed to use the GPS to identify the fastest route and provide directions, but Louis drives like a maniac and yells at him because he wants to be the first to arrive on the scene. Rick gets concerned and unintentionally gives him the wrong directions, and by the time they get to the correct location, the paramedics have already carted the sufferer away. After Joe teases him about his tardiness, Louis becomes enraged with Rick and demands improved communication, so Rick urges him not to rush him. The next time they acquire a good lead, Louis does not yell at Rick, and they arrive just on time. However, the police have closed the robbed residence, and there is nothing exciting to report. Louis refuses to give up and waits for the authorities to be distracted before sneaking inside the house to investigate the bullet holes in the kitchen. He rearranges the images on the fridge around the holes to make it appear more terrible, and the movie concludes with the holes in the window showing the victim speaking to the police. Before departing, he grabs some junk mail to obtain the identities of the victims. Moments later, Louis shows Nina the clip, which she completely likes. Frank freaks out because it's obvious Louis broke in and stole the names from private correspondence, but Nina decides to use it anyway. Louis and Rick became quite effective at locating good stories and recording them to later sell to Nina. Rick identifies the best routes for Louis to get to the scene quickly, and Louis records every gritty detail without shame while avoiding the cops. He always watches TV to see his own work on the screen and downloads all of the clips to his computer to compile a library. When he has enough money, he buys a better camera for himself and a second one for Rick to record from a different perspective. One night, they arrive at a car crash before the cops. Louis attempts to interview one of the drivers, who curses him since he is anxiously attempting to contact the 911 operator. Next, Louis investigates the smashed automobiles and discovers the other driver dead in a dark spot, so he begins dragging the body till it is in front of the car lights for a better image. He records as much as he can before the cops arrive and take him away. Joe sees him walk by and understands he has lost this one. Later, when Louis shows Nina the tape, she spots blood on his sleeve, but he ignores it and invites her to dinner. Nina initially rejects him, citing a desire not to jeopardize their business relationship. However, Louis hints that if she says no, he will cease delivering her good footage, leaving her with no choice but to accept. The next day, Joe runs into Louis and tells him he's expanding his team with several vans working for him, and he'd like Louis to join him. Louis refuses, and when Joe insists, Louis threatens him with violence. Joe storms out, cursing Louis's name. When Saturday arrives, Louis spends dinner with Nina at a restaurant and says that he wants her to be his lover. Once again Nina turns him down, explaining this was merely professional politeness. Louis quickly starts giving plenty of statistics he's uncovered on his investigation, pointing out her station as the lowest rated, and it's been his videos that brought thousands of new viewers. He knows Nina's contract is about to expire, so if she wants it to be renewed and keep her work, she must accept his offer. Nina is forced to start meeting Louis on weekends to get naughty in exchange for him selling the tapes exclusively to her. Later, Rick makes another mistake on the route, and Louis misses the biggest incident of the evening. Joe and his team obtain all of the film first, and Joe makes fun of Louis for it. At the end of the night, Louis records several minor crimes, and Nina snaps because their competitor station will cover the big story instead. Her bosses will be furious, and she believes she gave him her body for nothing. The next morning, Louis becomes enraged after seeing Joe's film on the rival channel and destroys his bathroom mirror. He plans to sneak into Joe's house and wreak havoc on his truck in order to exact revenge. That night, Louis and Rick arrive just in time to film a vehicle accident. It turns out that it is Joe's van, and he was critically injured in the collision, therefore, he is being transported by ambulance. Rick believes it is wrong to record a fellow stringer and claims Joe is one of them. But Louis is unconcerned and approaches the scene to capture everything. Joe glares at Louis in rage as he chokes on his own blood. A few nights later, Louis and Rick arrive at a massive mansion that has been broken into before the cops do. Louis slips inside and notices the culprits leave the scene, so he hides in the bushes to record their faces and their van's license plate. Then Louis enters the house and records every drop of blood on the floor, tracing the trail to locate all of the victims' bodies. Louis films them all one by one, even including footage of an empty crib with enough buildup to lead the spectator to believe there is a dead infant within. When he discovers the final body, he realizes the man is still alive, but instead of assisting him, he records him before fleeing with Rick just as the police arrive. They pull over after a few blocks so Louis can quickly remove the perpetrators and the living victim from the tape. Moments later, he shows Nina the footage, who is extremely impressed. As usual, Frank flips out, so Nina contacts the channel's lawyer to ensure that this is legal. The lawyer argues that they are blurring the lines, but as long as they do not divulge the address or edit the victims' faces, they will be fine. Louis then demands $15,000 for the tape, and when Nina refuses, he loses his temper. He informs her that he has complete control here, so she must always pay whatever he asks for without complaint, insists that the anchors give credit to his firm, Video Production News, and introduce Louis to all of her co-workers so he can begin developing connections. Nina is terrified and can only agree. When it's finally time to go live, Louis stays and watches with satisfaction as the anchors bring up his company while presenting the footage. The anchors must also describe the crime scene, and Nina constantly gives them cues to make everything more dramatic, graphic, and frightening. When they cut for a commercial break, Nina's executives phone to congratulate her and ask to meet Louis. The next morning, Detective Frontieri and her partner visit Louis' residence to ask him some questions. Louis fabricates a story, claiming that he heard the gunshot and entered the house wanting to help, but it was too late, so he began recording instead. He recalls seeing a van drive away, but he did not notice the criminals' faces. The detectives aren't convinced, but they can't do anything else, so they depart. Louis then searches for the license plate online and finds the address of one of the perpetrators. He goes with Rick and waits outside the home for the criminal to emerge. When Rick observes the vehicle, he questions why Louis isn't calling the cops right away. Louis says that he wants the crooks to go somewhere nicer, hoping that they'll resist arrest and make a better story. Rick flips out and wants a raise, claiming that this is getting too risky. Louis forces him to choose a number, and Rick responds with $75 per night, prompting Louis to promptly clinch the transaction. His reply makes Rick realize he could have asked for much more, but when he attempts to ask for a greater number, Louis informs him it's too late. When the criminal eventually exits the residence, the two follow him and watch as he picks up his companion. They then continue to pursue the criminals until they arrive at a fast food establishment. Louis finally contacts the cops, providing full descriptions and claiming the criminals are armed. He further says they are the sought guys from the big crime and offers his own name as the person who located them. After Louis hangs up, Rick knows he'll ask for the reward the police put on these people and asks for half of it. Louis is upset, but he really needs a second camera for those extra perspectives, so he agrees to pay, and Rick leaves to stand on the opposite side of the restaurant. Soon, the cops arrive, and when they approach the criminals, they open fire, resulting in a gunfight that kills numerous individuals. Louis and Rick video everything as one of the crooks is killed and another is wounded, but he is still able to flee in his car. The cops are immediately after him, and Louis picks up Rick before following them. Louis drives like a frenzy, swearing at Rick and refusing to stop recording. The car chase is so intense that a civilian car collides with a police vehicle, knocking it out of the game. The other police car continues to follow the criminal, who begins slamming their car with his van, causing an accident in which both he and the officers collide. Louis runs in to photograph all of the bodies before abruptly announcing that the culprit has died. He invites Rick to come and record so he may learn more about the horrible photos, but when Rick approaches, the criminal appears to be alive and shoots Rick down. Louis does not appear surprised and continues to record as the criminal exits the car. He hears the cops approaching and attempts to flee. However, the cops promptly shot him down. Then Louis checks on Rick and documents his injuries, which makes Rick understand that Louis knew the criminal was still alive and used Rick to gain a better narrative. Louis has no remorse and grabs Rick's camera after his death. Louis then shows Nina all of the footage, which she enjoys due to the graphic nature of it. When they're about to go live, Frank informs her that a trustworthy source has told him that the incident at the house was not the result of random thugs becoming violent, rather, the family was part of the mafia and was harboring illegal substances. However, Nina refuses to include that aspect in the tale, stating that the tragedy of the common guy sells better. Frank tells her she sounds like Louis, but Nina takes it as a compliment, stating Louis has encouraged them to achieve more. Later, Detective Frontieri returns to the station and wants the footage as proof, but Nina refuses to hand over the tapes without a warrant. Then Frontieri takes Louis to the station to question him, but he remains cool and adheres to his tale. Frontier becomes increasingly enraged and calls him out for his insane and immoral work policies, but she is forced to release him due to a lack of evidence. A few nights later, Louis acquires 2 vans bearing the Video Production News logo and hires 3 interns. He will not pay any of them, but he vows not to force them to do anything he would not do himself before they go together to locate the next story. Thank you for watching. If you are new, don't forget to subscribe for more recaps. Until next time, have a nice day.